Lots of stories in the news that are of great concern to us, and I'm sure they are to you as well. This is a story that we reported on yesterday out of the Pillar. We're going to be linking to this story and everything else in the show notes today, so make sure to check out the show notes. The St. Jude Relic Tour suspended over police investigation. And the statement said, according to a statement from the Queen of the Apostles Parish in Joliet, Father Martin was accused Thursday of an unspecified incident involving students, which prompted Father Michael Lane, parish moderator, to contact the police. Now, that's a very interesting statement. Did he, in fact, contact the police? Because there seems to be some contradiction going on in some of these statements. Well, Father Carlos Martins did respond to this through his attorney's office. And I have that statement, and I'm going to link to it for you. If you want to read the entire thing for yourself, you can do so. Go to thestationofthecross.com/ACT. This is a very interesting story. Now, just to truth in advertising, I've known Father Carlos now for, I don't know, the better part of 20 years almost. I mean, not quite that long, but maybe 15 years, 12 years, somewhere in that neighborhood. I can't remember exactly when we met, but he was a deacon at the time here in the Houston area. So I've known him a very long time. And more recently, I had him on the show. But here is the statement coming out of the Burke Law Group, sort of responding in the sort of the regards line, this defamatory conduct by J.D. Flynn, Ed Condon, and Michelle LaRosa of the Pillar. Dear sirs and madam, I'm going to skip down just to kind of get to the meat of the event itself. You can read the rest for your if you like. On November the 21st, 2024, Queen of the Apostles Parish in the Diocese of Joliet, Illinois, hosted Father Martins to share the relic of St. Jude for public veneration. The parish invited its school to attend. Over 200 students attended the event, which was hosted in St. Paul Church. All the facts surrounding the Pillar's reporting happened in front of a large group of people encompassing multiple grades. As he always does, Father Martins begins his interaction with the attendees in a chit-chat dialogue. He is bold and apt to joke about it as a conversation starter. During his conversation with the older students, he made a comment to a student about her long hair, remarking, quote, "You and I have almost the same hairstyle," close quote, a comment met with giggles. He then remarked that he also once had long hair like hers, and he joked that he would, quote, "floss my teeth with it," close quote. Again, his comment was met with laughter. He then asked the student, quote, "Have you ever flossed with your hair?" Close quote. Laughing, she shook her head, no. He then said, quote, "Well, you have the perfect length for it," as he lifted up a lock from her shoulders to show her its length. She giggled along with the others. He was building rapport. The student came home and told her father the story. He apparently became infuriated by what he heard, calling the police. The police arrived at the parish during the event and, after questioning the students, left without making any arrests or filing charges. It was only after the outraged father called the police a second time, insisting that they charge Father Martins with battery, that the police agreed to further investigate. There is no indication that there is any new evidence that would further implicate my client of any wrongdoing. To date, no charges have been filed. So right now, already from this letter from the attorney of Father Carlos Martins, there's no mention of what the Pillar reported in their article. All they said there was an incident. They didn't give any more details about the incident. They didn't actually elaborate on whether or not it was children or students, and if students, what age. They didn't give even an age range of these students. They also seem to suggest that it was the parish that called the police, whereas the letter from Father Carlos Martins' attorney says it was the father. It goes on, though. The Pillar and its editors entirely ignored these facts that were readily ascertainable through any preliminary investigation. Instead, the pillar may have defamed Father Martins by insinuating he engaged in sexual crimes with children at the parish. The statements that the pillar and its individual reporters and editors made include, but are not limited to accusations that Father Martins is involved in a police investigation, while failing to note that the initial investigation found no fault. The salacious headline accusing Father Martins of alleged inappropriate conduct involving children. I mean, let's just be honest. If this were, if somebody you never heard of, Father John Doe, had an incident with children, what would you have immediately thought? Your first thought would have been a sexual nature, would it have not? Why? Because of the sexual scandal in the church. Of course it would. So that statement seems to suggest something in the minds of most of its readers, but it doesn't seem to be in keeping with the actual facts of the case. It goes on. The article goes on to describe an incident involving students at the parish with no reference to the nature of the public audience or the incident that the children were, that the nature of the public audience or that the incident consisted of a conversation that took place in full view of many. Instead, the pillar insinuates that the children were alone with Father Martins, when the truth was that all the interactions with the children took place in a classroom setting with teachers, clergy, parish staff, and volunteers all present. This misinformation is so obviously damaging to Father Martins' personal and professional character and reputation by implying that Father Martins' behavior mirrors other instances of clergy abuse, a deplorable allusion that in no way reflects the facts. In addition to being defamatory, these statements may also constitute a violation of canon law, which protects a priest's good name and reputation. The pillar takes its position against Father Martins with complete disregard to whether he is guilty or not guilty of such a crime. Although the pillar claims to be focused on investigative journalism, it disregards the due process rights of Father Martins that he has under secular and canon law. For example, priests have a right under canon law to a preliminary investigation by the diocese in Joliet, Illinois, before any remedial or punitive action may be taken. The diocese has made no statement about Father Martins other than that the tour has been suspended for unforeseen circumstances. The pillar confronts this statement the pillar contorts this statement and conflates it with quotes in a letter by the parish priest who falsely claims to speak on behalf of his diocese, something he lacks the authority to do. The pillar's journalistic bias is apparent by how it frames the serious accusations in the context of diminishing Father Martins' ministry in general, something you are free to do. However, when you question the, quote, allegedly demonic encounters, close quote, Father Martin shares on his podcast, the pillar is in effect accusing our client of lying about his work as an exorcist. The entire article is a takedown of Father Martins, casts him in the worst possible light, and alludes to him committing the worst possible offenses a priest can commit. In cases of alleged abuse of children by a priest, it is sometimes virtually impossible to prove the priest's innocence given the he said, she said nature of an incident and the difficulty for a priest to prove a negative, especially under current cultural conditions where priests are presumed guilty. But that is not the case here. Rather, the facts in this case were and remain readily apparent and easily discoverable upon a baseline competent investigation. The pillar could have requested a police report, for example, or sought to speak to any of the hundreds of people at the event. Moreover, the pillar provided no indication that they reached out to Father Martins for a comment or to otherwise sought his side of the story before publishing its screed. Now, there's just a paragraph or two left there. You can read it again for yourself. And I will also link the pillar's response to having received that letter. They, of course, are responding. And I'll point out one thing that they're saying about this. It says the Diocese of Joliet told the pillar Monday that the lawyer's narrative was an accurate but incomplete rendering of the situation and said there were, quote, additional facts not recounted by Martin's lawyers. Okay, very well. What are those facts? Enough of the vagueness, enough of the ambiguity of it all. If you're going to make an assertion that's going to suspend the man's priestly faculties, which it has temporarily, the Companions of the Cross has suspended his priestly faculties, waiting for the outcome of the investigation. If you're going to make accusations or make an alleged accusation that that will now end his tour with the relic of St. Jude across the United States on loan from the Vatican, if you're going to call into question whether or not his experience as an exorcist is legit or not, which calls into question his podcast and the book he's just published, I mean, I got to say, if you do all of those things and you don't provide any details whatsoever, but you allow people to just think the worst of the guy, well, then you're part of the problem. You're not part of the solution. In the era of scandal that we find ourselves in these days, where priests are constantly under the gun, under the hot light, thanks to people like former Cardinal McCarrick, who back in 2004, as the president of the U.S. Bishops' Conference, gave us this crazy process by which we all have to go through training to be certified so that we can volunteer at our local parish, while he himself molested young men at the seminary, and everybody apparently knew about it, but nobody did anything about it. Golly gee whiz, it seems a wee bit hypocritical. Father Rupnik gets to continue to do whatever he does every single day, while Father Carlos Martins gets to have his faculty suspended, his tour canceled, his reputation sullied. Will it be repaired? Is it even possible? Because it would seem that what he did does not constitute anything of the treatment that he's currently receiving. And it is, my friends, a part of the scandal of the church today. The church where every priest is guilty until proven innocent. The guilty ones must face their judgment, but the innocent ones must be protected. And as lay folk, we need to be careful about that. And I'm speaking to myself more than I'm speaking to you. We live in interesting times, my friends, but we shouldn't tolerate the injustice of things. We shouldn't allow the system to be the punishment by which they punish their enemies or the people that they don't like. Let us pray for a just outcome in this circumstance. I don't know how you feel about him holding up a lock of hair of a little girl. I'm sure the dad was upset about that. I'm sure that felt like a violation of personal space, not a violation of any sexual encounter or anything else of the kind. And does that mean his entire priestly career should be ruined as a result? We should think hard and fast about these things.
Did you like that video? It's okay. You can admit it. It's perfectly fine. Hey, we cover the big stories of our day, from inside the church to outside the church to all points in between, and we do it from a Catholic perspective. It's called A Catholic Take. It's a radio program Monday through Friday. We live stream it right here on this channel, by the way, so make sure to subscribe, like, and share. We would be very grateful to you. And don't forget, you're going to want to watch this video right here because you don't want to miss anything.